years ago, I heard somebody say that almost nothing in your life is as important as the person that you marry when it comes to your future success and happiness. Hi everybody, my name is Sharon, and this is a channel that is dedicated to all things related to narcissism. As somebody who did not marry well, I want to elaborate on what this man said, and then I want to tell you something terrible that happened to my kids and I on Monday as part of my crazy narcissistic ex storyline videos. So this man was stating that people get into marriages and they don't think. They think, well, I love this person. There's nothing else. Like they're basing their marriage on just love. And of course, love is important. It's an integral part of a successful marriage, but love is an emotion. And if you just go on that, what happens when love fades? Because marriages do go up and down. Then what? He was saying that marriages you should look at them, and this sounds not great, but it's true. You should look at it kind of like a business transaction and think about if you really were doing a business transaction, or if you're buying a car or something like that. Think of the research that you would do. You wouldn't just blindly say, you know what, I think I'm going to start this business. It just seems good. Yeah, I'm going to start today. Or I would never say, I'm going to go buy a car today and just drive over and just grab the first one. I'd look into it. What type of mileage does it have? What's the safety? Whatever, how much is it? Like you would do things like that. But with marriages, so many of us just blindly go in. And he noted that if you go into a marriage just because you love the person, he's like, no, let me tell you something. He's like, I love my wife. I also love turkey sandwiches. People use that word love arbitrarily for different things. But there's different love. And if I loved a turkey sandwich, say I love turkey sandwiches, I wouldn't eat the turkey sandwich. I would maybe start a turkey sanctuary so that other turkeys wouldn't turn into turkey sandwiches. We go into these marriages and we don't know. We watch too many movies or something and we get swept up in it. And then next thing you know, you're living in hell. And that's a real reality. This man noted that he believes that you should really, really look into your prospective marriage partner. You should look into their background, know their family. He said that he goes so far as he thinks you should run a credit check. You should see their bank statements. You need to know deeply who this person is. Love by itself isn't a reason to get married. Now, for those of you that don't know, I was married for almost 20 years to a narcissist. We've been separated for several years. I left him. Sometimes I hesitate to say I left him because I don't feel like I left him. I feel like I escaped him. So my kids and I escaped him in December. So it's been almost a year and I've been no contact since that time. That hasn't gone over very well with my ex. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why I left and what happened on Monday. So I left because my ex was stalking, harassing, and scaring my children and I. He had become dangerous. He showed up at my house with a loaded gun. He broke into the house. He was always stalking us. My kids, we never left the house without my kids looking all around for his car. And he has a RAV4, so that's a fairly common car. We didn't go to the mailbox without locking the door. I had these backyard chickens. I still have them, but when I had them there, Joe told me, Sharon, I don't want you to ever go check those chickens without carrying the gun with you. That's how bad it was. So we escaped, we left, and I couldn't take everything in the house. I took my children, my animals, and what I could, but there were things I left at the house that I really, really wanted to keep. But it's almost like if your house is on fire or if it gets destroyed by a tornado. Sometimes you lose things, and the most important things that you can have are your family, your animals, your pictures, certain mementos. And I was able to get all those, thank God, but I wasn't able to take everything. And here's where Monday comes in. So I've been no contact with my ex since December, and he doesn't like that. Narcissists are really, really good about giving silent treatments. And by the way, I don't believe no contact is a silent treatment. It's protection. You're saving yourself. You have to. No contact is, I have to make sure that my mental health is okay. And a narcissist isn't going to want you to have good mental health. They don't care. They'll do whatever they want. So I've been no contact since December. My children also are no contact. Now I say, my ex, we spoke briefly, like last year, a couple of times. It was more text and it was just little things. I stopped completely in December. For my kids, though, he hasn't spoken to them, had any communication with them until a few months ago after I initiated the divorce. So he gave them like a real silent treatment for 2 years. Thank God my kids have heads on their shoulders and they're not letting somebody treat them that way. They're not going to let themselves be bullied by somebody. And I'm so proud of them for that because I wasn't that way. That's how I ended up getting involved with him in the first place. Because I can't tell you that there were no red flags. There were, but I didn't see them. I didn't know. I kept making excuses for them. My kids have learned through the hardest way possible. My ex and I are in the middle of the divorce. And I want to tell you something about the divorce court. They don't care about you. They don't care about your kids. They have an agenda. You go in and there is an agenda. And the agenda is this. Everything's going to be split 50-50. Essentially, they're living in this fairy tale world where, there's no reason you're getting divorced. You've decided just to set up 2 households. So you have 2 households, you split your assets and your kids go back and forth and everybody is skipping under a rainbow. That's not reality. People don't get, if you could live like that, why would you get divorced? People get divorced for real reasons. I am getting divorced for a real reason. My kids and I were abused by somebody in all ways. The court doesn't care. So now for me, I have 2 children, a 19-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son. My son is captured by the court. He can't make his own decisions. Now he's 16, but he has no say. It's all the court and also the abuser. It doesn't matter what my ex has done. It's inconsequential. He wants to have a relationship with his minor child. He gets to have a relationship with his minor child. It doesn't matter what the child wants. So my ex gave these kids silent treatment for over 2 years. Once we started the divorce process, the mediation process, this is when things started changing a little bit. He suddenly decided that he wanted to have. Now, he never mentioned my daughter, who is 19, it's the 16-year-old, because my belief is because he has some control over him through the court. My daughter is out of his range, so he's just not going to deal with her. But when it comes to my son, that's where he has some control because the court will be on his side. And I have to be very careful what I say, because if I say too much about how he really is as a person, I could have my son taken away from me. And just like I said, if you had a fire or something like this, you're saving your children, your animals, your pictures, and certain mementos. The most important thing to me, what I needed to save is my son. I want to make sure that my son is safe. Literally nothing else matters, my child. That's what I wanted above everything with this divorce is full custody of my child. That's what I wanted. And in fact, the divorce isn't final, but as it's going right now, my ex essentially got every single thing he wanted, but I have my son. And so, that's how it is. That's how it goes. But my son is captured by the court. He is like a caged animal. Joe also went through something very similar. He had an older child and his son is 18 now, his younger son, but he was a minor when he was going through the divorce. And the older son, it didn't matter about the older one, it was the younger one. The court traps you. And actually somebody said to Joe, like a child advocate said to Joe, it's better for a child to have a bad parent than a good parent. What do you even say to that? That's insane. What are you talking about? I can't, what? This is a child advocate? But the court is like that. So my ex wants to have a relationship with his child. His child does not want a relationship with him. He's been traumatized and abused by this man. And the thing is too, if my ex had said to my son, I'm so sorry. I realize what I did was wrong. I shouldn't have stalked you. I scared you. I know the gun scared you. I'm so sorry. But I'm going to therapy every week. I'm doing this, and maybe one day, hopefully, you'll open up the door to me so we can maybe try to mend our relationship. That's one thing. That's not what a narcissist does. He just wants suddenly a child he hasn't spoken to, seen, had any communication with, to suddenly come back to New Hampshire and visit him, to suddenly have this relationship with them. He wants to call him on the phone every day. My son doesn't want that. That was horrifying to him. So we got it down to 1 email a week. So my ex is allowed to email, I say my son. I know some people will be like, oh, he's your son. The 2 of you, I get that. But I'm the one that's raising him. He has no communication with him, so I do refer to him as my son. I realize he has a father, but that's how I look at it, just for anyone wondering about that. 1 email a week. So every Monday, he gets these emails. Now, like I mentioned, I've been no contact with my ex since December. He sends me occasional emails, and he sent me an email last week. It was titled, "Please read." And then what he did is he said to me, if you don't respond to me, well, he mentioned that I have these items in the house. Remember, I left the house, I escaped, I left things behind that I would prefer to have still had. But I realized at the time, like, I have to get my kids, I have to get my animals, I have to get my pictures and the most important items in my life. I have to leave things. It's a sacrifice. It was a sacrifice, and it was difficult, but I had no choice, and I don't regret it. I had to save my children. I had to save myself. I was afraid that he was really going to harm us. He had done it before, and he was so unstable. I was terrified. He wouldn't, like, it was horrible. I told you, he was wandering around the backyard, showing up with guns. It was terrible, terrible. I had to escape. But what my ex did is he sent me this email telling me that he had, these items at the house, and if I want them, I need to contact him. I didn't contact him. I was upset about this, but I didn't contact him. Then what he did in the Monday email, he sent to my son the email, and it said, I never use my son's name, so I'll just call him son. "Dear son, your mother's not responding to me. I have these items at the house," and he listed the items. "If you want them, you need to tell your mother to contact me." I'm reading this email, all right? I know this email was intended to hurt me, but what ended up happening is that some of the things on the list were my son's. And one item in particular is something that I want, something that I wish I had brought with me, or at least some of them, and I didn't, and there's no turning back now. I have to let it go, but it was very difficult. When my son was a little boy, when he was in preschool age, he loved Thomas the Tank Engine. He loved that show. And I used to volunteer at the preschool that he went to. And so we would go, so what we did every Friday is we would go to school together. I would be a volunteer there, so we'd spend time together at school. And then afterwards, I think preschool was something along the lines of 9 to 11:30. It's just a couple hours. After that, we would go out to lunch together, or we would eat at home together, or sometimes we'd get pizza, and we would watch Thomas the Tank Engine, and we would play. He had a bunch of those little trains. We would play with those. It was such a wonderful time, you guys. It's one of my fondest memories of my son. And I didn't take those trains with me, and I wish that I had. I didn't have room for them, and I had to bring other things. But I wish now I had at least taken a couple of them, but I didn't. I didn't take any of them. And they're at the house. And my ex is telling my son and me that he's going to sell them or throw them away if we don't get in touch with him. And I saw that email to my son on Monday morning, and I was really upset, but I was able to hold it together. It wasn't until Monday night, Joe was working, and I didn't want to bother him when he was working. So, and I held it together at night, almost like if you're sick. It always gets worse at night. It was like that. It started getting worse at night. And then I started really getting upset. Then I started crying, and I was trying not to cry because I can't cry without looking horrible. If I cry a little bit, shed a few tears, that's all right. But if I have a full-on cry, my eyes just retain water and they look horrible, like puffy eyes. It's so bad. I can't even put eye makeup on because I don't have eyelids anymore. They're all swollen. So I can't hide it. It's and right now I'm making this video. It's Wednesday early. I make my videos in the middle of the night. So it's the middle of the night on Wednesday. My eyes are still a little puffy. So I'm crying, and Joe's like, "What's wrong? What's the matter?" And I don't want to tell you. I can't tell you right now because I wanted to say goodnight to the kids. So I didn't want to go upstairs and look like I was crying. And so he's holding me, and I'm trying not to cry. I'm trying to think of other things. I'm holding ice cubes to my eyes, I'm doing all this stuff. And there was waterworks, and then I just couldn't stop. And Joe's like, "You need to tell me because you're crying anyways. Just tell me." So I told him what my ex said, and that I really, really want those trains. And Joe said to me, "Sharon, both of us and many of you have married narcissists. In order to get free, there's a sacrifice. You have your son. The trains don't matter. They don't matter. Your son's not even playing with them, but he's like, your ex is using this special item that he knows about to try to get with you, to break no contact. So just bring it back to the beginning of the video, and I'm talking about why it's so important to marry the right person. This is why. Because when you marry somebody who's cruel and vindictive, this is what's going to happen. This was my life. The entire marriage, there were issues all the way through. But once I put an end to it, when I stopped being codependent, it was just, that's it. And the real him came out. When you are with a narcissist, the real them is just lurking right below. It's like they're wearing a mask, and it's right there. Joe and I were watching last night. Usually every night, Joe and I, before we go to bed, we cuddle in bed. And it's just the greatest thing. I just love it because I have my head in his chest and we're watching a laptop. We usually watch YouTube or Netflix. And last night we were watching something on, I can't remember her name. It was a woman that had an exorcism done, and it was the priest were talking about what the exorcism was like and things that happened. And I know not everybody believes in this stuff. I used to not either until I got involved with the narcissist, but I get it. And it doesn't really matter if it's true or not. It's just the mentality of it, like the way to describe it. This person, once the demon came out, the whole face transformed. It was a different person. And if you think about life, right, there's like two parts of life. To have somebody be alive, there is the physical and the spiritual part. So when the physical and spiritual are together and good, the person has a life, they have light in their eyes. When you think about a narcissist, have you ever seen a dead animal, or God forbid, a dead person? The eyes, there's nothing there. There's no light. That's like the soul, People call eyes the windows to the soul, because you can see that light, that spark. Have you ever seen somebody smile at you and they're a good person because of their eyes? Narcissists have death behind their eyes. I don't think that there is a spirit there. It's gone. When you die, your body is separated from your spirit, and your body can't exist without the spirit. Well, I guess it can exist, but you're not living a real life without the spirit. And I think that's the problem with narcissists. My daughter has said to me several times, and it's kind of funny when she says it, but there's a seriousness to it as well. She's like, Mom, they're like a husk, right? There's nothing underneath there. But I think when it comes to a narcissist, there's evil underneath there. I used to, I always knew that evil was real, that there were bad people in the world. But I didn't know how vile and real evil can be. It's one thing to just hear of it. It's another thing to see it, to experience it. I believe that when you're leaving a narcissist, you are in a war. You're dealing with spiritual warfare. And the narcissist will show themselves to you, and the evilness that's within them is going to come out. There's nothing they won't do. My ex really, really hurt me on Monday. Now, I was crying heavily, and I'm sitting there and I'm trying to calm down. I'm like hyperventilating, and Joe was like trying to calm me down. And at one point he left the room, and this is how I'm thinking. I'm thinking there, I'm like hyperventilating, I'm crying profusely. I was angry, like livid. And I'm thinking to myself, I could kill him. I could kill him. Now, if you know me, no, I couldn't really, by the way, but that's the thought. That's the thought process. It made me feel better to think of his destruction. It would not upset me if I found out that he died. It would probably be better. Then I could actually be divorced. You think these things. This is how deeply entrenched the narcissist is in our own body. This is why you marry somebody, you're connected to them, and you need to sever that. That's why there's, divorce isn't, Joe and I have mentioned before, in order to recover, you have to do inner work, because just getting the divorce doesn't mean that it's over. It doesn't mean that you are okay. I've done so much inner work and I'm at peace with things, but he still has the ability to hurt me when it comes to my children. I want those trains. I want them. And I know I'll never see them again. That, who knows, maybe he already sold them. I know from some friends of mine in New Hampshire, they told me that he's been having yard sales every weekend. He's selling his own kid stuff. Can you imagine? Here's this person that has no relationship at all with his children, and he's selling their things on the side of the road. This is what it is. I'm picturing other people picking through his trains that we bought together, that we played with together, that he got these as presents from Santa Claus. And it's so painful. I can't understand somebody how they wouldn't keep them. He doesn't have to get rid of them. He could keep them. He could keep every single thing in the house. He has nothing. I took all the pictures. I actually don't think my ex has a picture of his own kids because I was the one that took all the pictures. If you look through my phone right now, you will see pictures of my children, Joe, and my animals. And I have some pictures of Joe's kids too. But that's what's in my phone. Maybe some nature shots or a rainbow I saw. That's my phone. I have 15,000 photos on my phone of pictures mainly of my family. He never took pictures like that. I took all the photo albums. I don't think he has pictures of his own children, but he's not keeping anything in the house. He doesn't care. But he's using the things in the house to hurt me. That's a narcissist. That's the type of thing that a narcissist will do. So my advice to you, if you are going through a divorce from a narcissist, if you're about to go through a divorce from a narcissist, steel yourself. Make sure that you are prepared because this thing, I can't even call it a person, this thing will come at you with every single thing they can. They will find any way to hurt you. My ex knew this was going to hurt me. He thought, and I'll tell you, I was tempted. I would never, ever, ever contact my ex without telling Joe I wanted to do it because I'd need him to save me if I was going to do that. I'd need him to tie me up if necessary. Make your decision with the narcissist. I'm going to go no contact. I'm getting the divorce and go full steam ahead. Be like a horse with blinders on. These arrows are going to be flinging at you, hurting you, and it's so painful. But at the end of the day, you can undo the mistake at the beginning when I was talking about how the person you marry, almost nothing is as crucial to your happiness, to your health, to your safety. And that's what all of us are dealing with. So even if you think, it took me 6 years to leave my ex. Even if you think, I can't leave, I'll never be able to leave. Focus on the divorce. Focus that on the horizon and move forward. Do the inner work. Joe and I are going to be making some videos on how to do the inner work coming up and get yourself prepared because everybody can leave and this nightmare can be behind all of us. All of us. I don't believe that anybody needs to stay with a narcissist. And I know there are extenuating circumstances, so maybe I'm wrong on that, but the majority of people, I don't live as affluent a lifestyle as I used to live. It was a sacrifice, but it really wasn't because my kids are safe. My daughter loves to take walks. She can go out and take a walk, and I'm not freaked out that he's going to drive by or hurt her or kidnap her. I don't know. That's the thing when you don't know what someone's capable of, but you do know that they've already been violent, so that's in them that they could do it. It's worth it. But I just want to tell you, expect things like this. This is what they do. So I thought I would add that into a narcissistic storytime video because it's been a while since I've done that. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. I will have a video out on Friday, so stay tuned for that. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and Joe and I will be back on Monday. Oh, and you guys, today, on Wednesday, at 3 o'clock, my son is taking his driver's license test, so please say a prayer for him. He's so excited. He's nervous, but he's good. He's a good driver, which is such a blessing because he's a boy, not to be sexist, but boys are a little bit fast in the car. So he's still good. He's great. So I do think he's going to pass. So I will let you guys know on Friday. I'll probably put it on the community page, but if you could say a little prayer for him at 3 o'clock, I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support that I get from this channel. I really, really love you guys. So have a wonderful, blessed, happy day, and I will see you on Friday, but maybe later on the community page. God bless.